All right. Quite fun. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending our first presentation of the year for the Animal Rescue Working Group. And thanks to Sarien from the organization P.E.A.C.E Canada. My name is Camille. I am currently the coordinator of the Animal Rescue Working Group for ASM. We focus on presentations and training on animal care and rescue with the goal of trying to get activists more informed on what effective animal rescue looks like, as well as sustainable animal care. Part of this is educating ourselves on all these different elements that we may not currently be aware of, in addition to supporting sanctuaries and supporting groups who support sanctuaries, as well as holding space for them so we can keep learning. So this particular presentation is on microsanctuaries, and as mentioned before, we are very lucky to have Sarien from P.E.A.C.E Canada to give us this presentation on what exactly a microsanctuary is and the different components of starting one, and all these different aspects about this phenomenon that you may not be aware of. I'm going to hand it over to Sarien because the whole presentation is about what microsanctuaries are, what her group does, how to start one. So rather than me explaining, I will hand it over to her unless anybody would like to chime in before that. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and get started, and we can reserve any of the questions for after her presentation. Sarien, is that what you would prefer, if we reserve questions for after?
Yeah, or during, whatever people feel, because I know sometimes we have an idea in our head and we want to ask a question at that time. If maybe Camille, you can keep an eye on that for me, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you're willing to wait till the end, that would be very appreciated as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, if you do have any questions that come up during Sarien's presentation, feel free to leave them in the comments. If we're able to address, if there's a gap within Sarien's presentation and we're able to address them, we'll bring them up. Otherwise, we'll make sure to get to them after the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead. Take it away, Sarien.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up on your Saturday to talk to or listen to me talk about microsanctuaries. I've been in, so I guess we can start with who we are. So P.E.A.C.E stands, it's an acronym for People Ensuring Animal Care Exists. And we started back in 2018 just due to being involved with a group of people with rescues here in British Columbia, Canada. And we saw that there was a need for an organization that specializes in the transport coordination of farmed animal rescue specifically. And that's how P.E.A.C.E kind of started. And it's just been a snowball effect with everything. It's also my own personal thing that I geek out about is knowledge sharing. And that's how we started the P.E.A.C.E resources on our website. So on our resources website, we have free resources for sanctuaries as well as the public here in Canada with regards to starting sanctuaries, how to support sanctuaries, and things like that. So as you can see, our mission is helping farmed animals and farm sanctuaries through resources, rescues, and education. And our vision is a compassionate world for all sentient beings, supported by the ethics of veganism and modeled by sustainable farm sanctuaries. So that's a little bit about P.E.A.C.E. Let's talk about microsanctuaries. So I am not the expert. I know the individuals who started the microsanctuary movement. They're the amazing folks at the Microsanctuary Resource Center. And they really, oh my goodness, my screen is in the way here. They started the microsanctuary movement because they wanted to inspire vegans to rescue farmed animals with their existing resources. So your home, the space that you have, the money that you have, the knowledge that you have, creating a new model for sanctuary in your community and making it more accessible to everyday folks who want to be able to offer a home to a chicken. So my focus is chickens here today, due to the fact that a lot of individuals, I know we're all coming from different places in the world, but there is some cities allow backyard chickens, specifically hens. So in a way, as vegans, we can utilize that and actually adopt chickens to be able to, hens to be able to live with us, rescued hens, not roosters. That's the big concern here. And I'll address that a little bit later. Because unfortunately, farmed animals, you need to be specifically zoned to be able to keep farmed animals at your home if you're like more in the city limits. Again, I'll talk a little bit more on it later. So that's why chickens is really an amazing opportunity for everybody. So what is a microsanctuary? Like I said, is a smaller than traditional farm sanctuary, and it's caring for non-human animals, not usually seen as companions, in your own space. And also, very importantly, this is usually vegan homes, because that's just the movement that it's doing, because it's more with regards to animal rights, rescuing, creating a space to be able to rescue more individuals in that space. And if you look at microsanctuary resource centers principles with regards to what a microsanctuary will look like: ethical veganism, no consumption of animal products, reject the word humane, no breeding, priority to the safety and physical emotional well-being of the residents. Now, this is a really important thing, because I know there is a concern within the sanctuary movement, the difference between a petting zoo and a farm sanctuary. And there's an amazing article on the Open Sanctuary Project's website with regards to what's the difference between a sanctuary and a petting zoo. And it really comes down to prioritizing the individuals that you rescue's own emotional protection. So if you have a bunch of introverted sheep that they don't want to be able to interact with people due to their history, they're scared, that you create space that they can get away. And so that's really important for if you create a safe space for rescued individuals, because you do not know their history, that you do offer that safe emotional space as well. Again, interactions respectful, no buying from for-profit sources. There's a bunch of resources on our website, as well as on microsanctuaries resources website. It is a really strong debate within rescue, buying versus not buying. It's the trolley cart effect that we talk about, and we can talk more about it later if people want to have more information on that. But it is a very no buying rescues and collective liberation. So liberation for humans as well as non-human animals. Any questions so far? Okay. So where is microsanctuaries? Like I mentioned, it's at your home. Need to make sure about the zoning again, because we don't want to get a situation where you rescue individuals and then the bylaw officers come around knocking. One really important thing people usually don't think about is actually finding available veterinary support. So within more rural communities, there is farmed animal vets. Sadly, they specialize more in maintenance than recovery. So with chickens, if you can find a vet in your area that focuses more on other bird species that people would usually have more as their companion pets at home, that is a good way to first check if you even have veterinary support in your area. And for hens, especially if you're rescuing egg layers, like chickens from that was used for egg laying, there can be complications down the road, because they've been in that like, oh my goodness, brain, I need more coffee. They've been bred to unnaturally create a lot of eggs. So there's implants that can be done, but again, it's a specialized field. So you might need to look around and see if there's any vets that's either willing or have done implants for hens, because that might be needed. And so that's just one thing to think about before rescuing hens. But if you, again, how you can rescue over there, if you reach out to a local farm sanctuary and you want to connect with them and see if they offer an adoption program, they will offer you all these information to be able to help you, what vets are able to help you with these mandatory things. So again, that's something to think about. One thing that I love is the folks at Open Sanctuary Project. They have this free resource. Well, the whole website is free, but they have Compassionate Care Classroom. And in there is a free course on chicken care. So you can get free education on how to take care of chickens. So I really strongly advise anybody who would love to offer a home to a hen to be able to go and take advantage of that resource. The amazing thing is there is a difference between taking care of a chicken coming from an egg-laying organization, farm establishment, compared to what you would call a large breed chicken. So again, for the meat, just because of their unnatural big size that they do get. So there is a lot of considerations, and Open Sanctuary do offer 2 separate courses on best practice care for both individuals. So I really, again, strongly advise you to go take that. And why do you want to start a microsanctuary? Really, there's never enough homes. Unfortunately, within rescue, anybody involved in rescue and sanctuary know there's never enough homes. We're not going to rescue our way out of this, but every life saved makes a difference. And so if we can create a space for anybody who's willing to offer a home for him, that's more homes, because sanctuaries can only take so many individuals at their residence, at their space. So making this more accessible creates a bigger option for more rescues. It's almost the starfish story. If anybody, Google it if you don't know it fully, but just be able to save your own starfish. And then again, we always have to take into consideration the individuals we save, their personalities, what trauma they might have gone through. But there is an opportunity for activism, because if you do get the extroverted chicken who they love to go in car rides, or you have a goat that loves to go for leash walks or off leash walks with your dogs or other things, it creates this opportunity to normalize them as individuals for the public, because you get to interact with people. They're like, why do you have a chicken in your car? And things like that. So it creates that opportunity of a natural form of activism. But again, that should not be your motivation to start a microsanctuary, but it is an opportunity if that individual is somebody that is more willing to want to interact with the public. And lastly, how can you start a sanctuary? I mentioned the connecting with your local farm sanctuary. I think that's the best way to do it. Local shelters get a lot of requests as well. I caution about Kijiji Craigslist. I don't know what is the usual search engines, free places you can go to find animals, just because it can be traumatizing to go on there and see the amount of need and horrors that are out there. The one thing, sadly, for now, non-human animals are still viewed as property. So do get a surrender form signed, especially if you're not buying. There is a free template on our website of 2 surrender forms that you can use and just change it up how you need. It's under our resources of how to start a sanctuary, and there's a farm sanctuary roadmap that we created. And in there's 2 templates for a surrender form that you can use. But again, if you reach out to your local farm sanctuary, they should have one as well that you could probably just copy. And yeah, so these are the resources I would highly recommend everybody look at. The folks at Microsanctuary Resource Center, they offer resources as well as grants. That's the fun thing. They offer grants to people interested in starting a microsanctuary at their house. Open Sanctuary resources and free courses. We have resources if you're in Canada. Some of the grants that we have in our resources for farm sanctuaries do apply worldwide, so you can take a look. But because we specialize in Canada, a lot of our things we do focus on that. And then when you do rescue chickens, I do say the Facebook group Vegans with Chickens is really helpful. So you can take a picture, what is this? And then upload it there for people to see. So one thing that I missed talking about is, again, if you do rescue, make sure to check your zoning. And especially because we do get a lot of requests for roosters, people deciding to egg hatch, or sexing chicks is really hard. It's not an exact science. So if you get chicks from a store, they might end up with one rooster or two, and then we get dumping roosters and all that kind of not so fun things in rescue. So the best thing is to connect with your local sanctuary. So here you go. Let me leave this one up. It's nice and short. I figured, Camille, I hope that was good enough, but that is the premise of microsanctuaries. And we did do a podcast with Alistair from the Microsanctuary Resource Center. So if you go to our website under our podcast, we did talk to him, as well as the folks at the Open Sanctuary Project. And we have a bunch of resources, YouTube videos as well.
Thank you so much, Sarien. There were a couple of points I wanted to elaborate on while you were talking. As someone who currently has a micro sanctuary of 16 rescued bird friends, individuals that we've rescued from our vigils, as well as other areas of abandonment and exploitation in the Las Vegas area. It definitely has been a learning experience, and one of the biggest obstacles when you are a guardian of these animals is finding representative and accessible veterinary care. I've been taking care of chickens and ducks for the last, consistently for the last 4 years, and we've gone through the same vet here in Las Vegas, mostly because they are one of the only vets. So we've had to build rapport and relationship, and of course, bringing in birds as often as we do, because when they come from these exploitative industries, unfortunately, there's this idea behind this that they're not made to live. So even with this in mind, we nonetheless, as guardians, do everything we can to give them the quality of life that they deserve. Bringing animals like chickens to the vet is also activism, because people also don't typically see them. We always get questions. We have one large slaughterhouse survivor rooster named Joaquin here, and we had another rooster that both were frequent visitors to the vet, as well as bringing our hens for their egg laying implants, which is something that we do. There are always questions. People do not have, as we already know as activists, people do not have connections to these animals. People do not have understandings of these animals beyond what they see, the end result of what they see on their plates. And we always have a couple people who are in awe of how social and how friendly they are, and that, of course, that they require veterinary care. Unfortunately, especially in the States here with the rise in the price of eggs, we see more people buying animals. We see more people buying chicks and not getting them veterinary care like they deserve. So, Sarien already emphasized this, but if you are interested in starting your own micro sanctuary, or just perhaps adopting, some hens or roosters, if you're zoned for them, as she mentioned, veterinary care is non-negotiable. And unfortunately, not only non-negotiable, but it will take a lot of research, perhaps building rapport, and finding a vet who is willing to work with you and hopefully see these animals as individuals. They might not see them as the individuals that they are. Unfortunately, that is a crutch in the veterinary field. But what's important is being able to get them the resources that they need. Another thing about these implants that Sarien mentioned, they are actually illegal in many places, if not most of them, if I'm correct, right, Sarien? They are these implants, which are life-saving procedures that most sanctuaries and most vegan rescuers that I know of utilize, because they're life-saving procedures. It's a life-saving thing. as we know, these individuals are genetically modified, and while egg laying is not unnatural, we know that wild chickens lay eggs. How they're manipulated and how they're forced to do that, how their bodies are forced to do this, causes great distress on them. Unfortunately, reproductive diseases are very common. And with that, chickens are very good at hiding illnesses. They're very good at hiding.
Prey animals, right? They're prey animals. They have to hide it to survive in nature.
Yes. And that's another thing when we bring in these individuals, is having to learn these things the hard way sometimes. Because sometimes when you bring in a rescue chicken, they may seem okay one day, and the next day they are in some type of critical condition because they've hid it so well. And even if you are a really attentive guardian, you may not catch things right away. And it's absolutely devastating, which is why preventative measures are of the utmost importance, like these implants. So I went off a little bit, but these implants are illegal most places because the veterinary field views these animals as food. These implants are typically used, to my understanding, for ferrets and other types of small critters. But with the right combination of bad luck, a vet can get in trouble for giving implants to chickens because it disrupts their ability to be used for food. It is very speciesist. It is something that is an ongoing issue, but that is also why being a guardian of these individuals is just activism as a whole, because you still have to continuously fight for them. You have to continuously advocate for them. You have to prove that they're worthy, which is sort of this whole encompassing environment of activism as a whole. When we're at the slaughterhouses, we're doing disruptions, we're doing any type of demonstration, our goal is to represent these animals as the individuals they are, and to advocate for them like they deserve to be advocated for.
Yeah, and I think it does create kind of I think it is sad, but it creates another form of activism that I almost was like, oh, I wish somebody could take this on, because I know people have done some activism for pigs. So the mini pot-bellied pigs, most places in the city are not zoned to allow them. So I know that some people have had them as companion animals and have changed laws to be able to keep them. So it could be and it would get in the news. So it would be an opportunity possibly for some, if they do take this on in their city, to be able to change that law within their place. It's just a thought that I just came up with, because there's always like you said, if you walk into the feed store and when you go to the vet, like everything is almost like a form of activism. Walking with your sanctuary shirt into a room full of farmers, like everything is a form of activism in this space that people don't always think about. But one of the hardest things is standing up to your vet, finding a vet that's willing to do things more in a compassionate way. And I find, especially with chickens, if you're lucky and you can find a vet in your area that specializes more in what people would call exotic birds, they will be more compassionate when treating your rescues. That's just my personal experience. And yeah, it's pretty funny when you're in the waiting room, because we have a rooster microsanctuary. Like I mentioned, roosters are extremely hard to home. City bylaws usually don't allow them due to noise complaint. So we get a lot of requests for roosters, and that's one of the reasons why when we got the property here, we wanted to start a microsanctuary for roosters specifically. But people walking into a waiting room and having roosters crowing, being like, there's a rooster in here. And then starting that conversation, being like, yeah, people dump them, like how you see videos of people driving on a dirt road and a dog running up to them. It's a similar experience sometimes with roosters. You just, on a road, people dump their roosters on the side of the road, and then that starts that whole conversation that leads to other things. So you make a lot of good points, Camille. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just elaborating off of what you were saying. We do have a question in the chat. Felipe missed the beginning of the talk, but is there a minimum land area that one should have in order to start a microsanctuary responsibly? They ask.
Oh, good question.
That's a great question. That's a very great question.
That's an amazing question. Yeah, I think because I focused this one on chickens specifically, because a lot of people can have the opportunity to be able to do, people don't think about this, but you can have house chickens. There's these diapers. I think one of our my slides have a picture of a hen right down here. You can buy these diapers for chickens so that they can be in the house. So some chickens actually live in the house. Right now with avian influenza especially, you need to be careful to research. So having them indoors is a little bit more of a safety thing as well. But with regards to land, that's a really good question. The group, the Open Sanctuary Project, if you go on there, there is specific animal care instructions for best practice for individual species. So again, make sure you're zoned first, that you are zoned for the individuals that you want to give a home to. Look at the Open Sanctuary Project's resources and see what they recommend. They give recommendations that they've received from different groups, like the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, Farm Sanctuary, and I think Catskill is usually the ones that they mention for the best practice for the amount of land that you should have for that individual that you want to rescue. And then again, check for veterinary care in your area. Make sure that you have a vet locally that's able to take care of that individual for you and help you out. So that's a really good question. I think one question that I asked the team at Open Sanctuary, as well as I think I asked Alistair about it. It's like, well, what qualifies as a microsanctuary? What's the difference between just having a companion animal at home versus a microsanctuary versus like a sanctuary? And it's actually, they said that it's literally whatever you want to classify it as. You can have 10 individuals and call yourself a microsanctuary, or you can have 10 individuals and call yourself a farm sanctuary. It just depends on what kind of model. Usually with farm sanctuary, it's more like we're starting to look at the nonprofit model. So you have your social media with the nonprofit number or charity here in Canada. So again, I think microsanctuary falls more within, you can fund it yourself for the most part, and you're just offering like companionship or a home to individuals that usually, farmed animals that usually wouldn't be able to find a home. If that answers it. Did I answer it? Camille went away.
Oh no, I'm right here. I was just waiting if perhaps Felipe, if you were still here, if Sarien answered your question, or if you wanted to expand on that anymore.
There's a question in the chat. Was it addressed? I think so. Yeah.
Was it about the land, or is it a new one?
I
Yeah,
think
that
it
was
a land one.
the land one. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think, is that you, Camille? Yeah, Camille's been posting the links for us. Thank you, Camille.
Okay. Thank you. And Adrian has her hand up. Adrian,
Hi.
would you like to? Hi, Adrian.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you, and Sarien, and thank you so much for being here. This is really so interesting and helpful. I am so excited about this presentation. So I have, as everyone here knows, a lot of guinea pigs. I actually lost one on Thursday, so I have 8 guinea pigs here now. One was just at the vet today, which, as you mentioned, you walk in with a carrying case this big, and you've got a hairless guinea pig in there, and everyone is amazed that you're bringing a tiny animal to the vet, because people don't associate the fact that their personalities are just as big. It does not matter the size of the being. their personality is
Love
just
that.
as important. So you're right, it's awareness. I introduced her to a lot of people today. So my question is, because I've always wanted to have a guinea pig rescue.
Ooh.
And I mean, word is out in my region just because I'm so vocal about it. And I get a lot of requests for people wanting to rehome or, surrender. And obviously, this is my family. I don't have a rescue or a sanctuary. So as far as resources go and funding and even perception of setting up fundraisers or requests for donations and things like that, if I was to start, say, a rescue, there's a certain perception, obviously, because they'll see animals getting adopted, as opposed to a sanctuary where you might go hand in hand with a rescue because you might get permanent residents, correct? You know what I mean?
Correct.
And it turns into a bit of a sanctuary because you've got some unadoptables that you need to take care of for the rest of the remainder of their lives. So what's your feedback on resources for funding, whether it's grants or whether it's fundraising, for sanctuaries versus rescues, and the perception and even the, I guess, just, how do I put it? Not the morality of it, but if it seems like you've got all these animals in your home and people say, well, she's just asking for funding for her animals. When the truth
Gotcha.
is, you're just accepting surrender after surrender because otherwise people are going to dump them.
Mhm.
So what's your feedback on doing that? And also maybe if you have any resources that you can kind of throw my way. Sorry for the really long drawn out.
No,
Question.
that's perfect. That's perfect. I think the big thing, and Camille can maybe talk about it too, is transparency. I think that's a big one. And so do you have a social for it yet? Do you have a name?
No, this is something that I've had in my mind. I have not really moved forward on it just because, been so busy, but this presentation is a perfect opportunity to start the wheels turning again.
Awesome. So yeah, I would say if you're going to start receiving funds from the public, getting a nonprofit number. Are you in the States or whereabouts are you?
I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario.
Oh, perfect. So yes, you literally you don't need to be a charity. You just need to get your nonprofit incorporation. It takes literally a day if you want to, or a lawyer can help you on our website. There is a lawyer out in your way, Nick, who helps farm sanctuaries get their charity status if they want, but he can help you as well get your nonprofit status if you just want to have help getting that. Yeah, just incorporate as a nonprofit so that you are transparent that you're not using the money for yourself. Start a social so that you can be public about what you do. Think of a name. I would even do it just as a rescue name, or you can, literally it's your creative, whatever you want. You can be like Betty's Microsanctuary and Rescue, like you can, whatever. There's a lot of dog and cat rescues that function off of fosters, so that it's home-based as well. So you just being a home business in a sense is complete as a nonprofit is completely fine. Because you're using those individuals, you're taking them in, keeping them safe, vet checking them, and then fostering them out and adopting them out. So it's completely okay for the location. So I think that's the two tips that I would give you is like incorporate as a nonprofit. And then because in the States, nonprofit means the tax receipt. But in Canada, you need to be charity, and that can take like a whole year to get. So you can work towards that in the future if you want, but just being like transparent that this is not something where I'm going to be taking money in for my own use. This is all going to be separate for this organization, especially keeping the money for the nonprofit separate from your personal funds. So PayPal is a really great way to do that. You can receive donations through PayPal and they keep the money in there. It's really great. Just keep the money separate till you open a bank account, let's say for your nonprofit. So that's the first steps that I would do. On our website, there is a bunch of grants, and we did separate what nonprofits can qualify for versus charity. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find grants that do give money to rescue. rescue and sanctuary, but there are opportunities out there. The Lush grant is really great. There's a bunch of, especially look at community grants in your area. That's the advice I would give. And then also when you make sure with paperwork and things like that, that you get a really good surrender forms and adoption contracts and things like that. Look at our resources for starting a farm sanctuary, because it's kind of similar. There is a farm sanctuary roadmap where there's a lot of information on different things like surrender forms or a foster contract and things like that. But if you want, you can email me and I can connect you with some groups that can help you if you have any questions, if that's okay. Otherwise, did I answer that?
Absolutely. You gave me so many great tips and things to start researching. So I would just reach out at info@peacecanada.org.
Yes,
Awesome.
please.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
I have a question. So regarding implants, are they temporary? Do they have to be done, over and over again, or are they permanent?
Yes, they are temporary. Think like well, IUDs are kind of more permanent for women, but they do need to be, Camille, I think it's 6 months. I think it depends on the IUD, correct?
It varies.
IUD, listen to me, implant.
So it varies anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and it does depend on how much sunlight the individual is exposed to. So here in Vegas, ours last anywhere from 3 to 4 months or so.
But there's usually signs when it stops working, like they start laying more eggs.
They start laying eggs. A part of being a guardian for these individuals is looking at a lot of their behinds, of their butts, because if they have messy butts and messy feathers, that also indicates some sort of internal issue. But they are temporary.
Parasites.
Yes. So at best, you may, if somebody takes in a rescued hen and gets her implanted, you'll be seeing the vet for an implant perhaps twice a year, if not more. Here in my area, the procedure is around 350 plus per visit per bird.
Wow.
Yes.
I think it's like 100 here, approximately.
Wow. That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the location and the vet.
Yeah, it does depend. And once again, as I mentioned, we've built a rapport with this particular vet, and it's still this amount of money, even though, So unfortunately, that is the reality of it, but it saves their lives, so it is essential.
It's cheaper than having to pay for the surgery if they get blockage or any.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any type of issue like that. Yeah.
How risky is it to get the implants? Is it like a very invasive procedure, or how is it done?
It is for if you're doing for preventative measures and they're not already ill, which wouldn't be, a good vet wouldn't advise to do something like that on a individual who couldn't perhaps come out of this, but it's fairly, it takes honestly maybe 10 or 15 minutes at best. We've gotten 3 of our hens implanted multiple times, and we are working on getting more implanted, but it is typically not, it doesn't require like surgery. They don't need to be opened up or anything. It's inserted inside of them. So it is not, it's not like necessarily like a spay or a neuter for a cat or a dog.
Yeah, that's why I kind of use that IUD reference for people, but I guess maybe you're only female would understand.
So they don't have to be like like any anesthesia?
No, thankfully no. Yeah, it's you would think so because of the prices that I mentioned as well, but no anesthesia is required. Sometimes you do have to, like, if you are a guardian or a vet and there's some internal issues, you do have to perhaps take a finger and see inside of the chicken's cloaca to see if you feel any type of abnormalities. So essentially that's the method for implants. So it's not, there's no surgery required, and it typically takes a short amount of time. So that's another benefit to it, is that it's not, it doesn't require anesthesia. It doesn't require anything, even like a spay or neuter as mentioned for a cat or a dog.
Yeah, because you can't spay or neuter chickens.
That is true. Roosters, their parts are actually inside of them, which is a scary and sad thing too, because they can get testicular cancer, but it is their parts are inside, so it's harder to tell. But yes, yeah, it's not as, I mean, it's always an interesting topic of conversation, because obviously with our relationship to animals as a whole, most of the things that we do can be looked at as invasive, unfortunately. But in this particular case, it's not, as mentioned, it's just not as an intense procedure as you might see with other animals when it comes to reproductive health. And in the long run, it will save lives.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Varun. Adrian said that she'd name her sanctuary after her first skinny pig, Gunther. That's a fun name. I like Gunther.
That is that's very cute.
Does anyone have any more questions or comments? If not, I just want to add real quick that I also view animal rescue and this type of guardianship as mutual aid. Mutual aid has, become this popular phrase in the last few years because of, 2020 and humans just having a hard time accessing basic resources for themselves and people giving up their animals. It's so it's become a more familiarized term, but essentially it means, that these systems in place that currently exist aren't meeting the standards that they should for individuals. It's typically used for humans, when the accessibility issue and just the ability for a human to have, housing and access to water and nutrient dense food, which of course we refer to nutrient dense food as plant-based food. But when it comes to animals, it's even more present because we recognize that the systems in place don't account for their longevity, short-term, like long-term at all. Like they're just, essentially this world isn't necessarily built for animals like chickens, let alone farmed animals as a whole. So when you are in this position, you are practicing mutual aid and filling in the gaps in these systems that should be available for all sentient beings, but sadly and unfortunately are not. So that's another aspect in regards to activism. We see mutual aid as, making plant-based foods and distributing them to those in need, but it is also taking care of animals. It is also animal rescue. It is also holding space for these individuals. I also want to mention that even if you aren't able to, or you don't end up starting your own microsanctuary, hopefully this information leaves you just a little bit more informed if you come across a hen in need. Once again, many of us are in the unique opportunity to be around these individuals. I know that's how it was from vigils that I started. I have a family of rescued animals now just because they run for their lives. They don't want to die. And if we can provide them an opportunity to live out quality lives, then I think we should take these opportunities. But yeah, if you are in this position where you might have access to these animals, then you should hopefully be more knowledgeable about their care. So sorry about that. I have an appointment in a little bit. So even if, like I said, if you don't end up starting your own microsanctuary, if you come across a hen in need, you will have these resources to provide them the care, even if you have to rehome them to a sanctuary later, which once again is very helpful, fostering for existing farmed animal sanctuaries who might need help with quarantine. So yes, that is my that is my piece. And yes, if there's any more questions, please. Sorry, I'm on my phone and it keeps turning, but if there's any more questions, we'd love to hear them. Once again, Jennifer did record this, so for anybody who wasn't able to attend, or if you want to go back and listen to any of the discussions or answers Sarien gave, we'll make sure that it's available, and I'll share it. Just want to say thank you again to Jennifer for helping coordinate the dates and times and creating the graphic for this. And Sarien, I'll let you have the last word unless someone else would like to chime in.
Thank you. And thank you, Camille, for reaching out and all the patience, because we were going to do this like last year and it kept being like, oh, life is just crazy. I don't know, Jennifer, do you need to say anything else? Looks like.
No, I'll stop the recording now.
Okay.
Since it's done.
Perfect. And if any